If you've tried to use the Gran Turismo 7 decal uploader to upload high quality decals into the Gran Turismo 7 decal library, then you know exactly how painful this process can be. And unfortunately, if you want to be able to create high quality custom liveries, you really need to know how to create high quality custom decals. The two things really go hand in hand, and if you're limited to the decals that other people have already uploaded, then you're only ever going to be able to be so creative and so unique with the liveries that you create. And so fortunately, I have learned several tricks over the years that will help you get around these pesky error codes and really help you get on your way to creating high quality decals like some of the ones that you see in the decal uploader that at face value might seem completely impossible for you to otherwise do yourself. But I'm here to tell you that they're not impossible, they're actually very attainable, and I'm going to really help you to do that today. Now, if you are watching this video, then I can assure you that there are other people that have the same questions that you might have when it comes to getting decals uploaded into the Gran Turismo 7 decal library. And so I would just ask that you save this video, bookmark it, and just have it handy as a reference if you come across a question on Discord or maybe Reddit or even GT Planet, where you see somebody asking about GT7 decals. You can point them towards this video. We're going to cover a lot of different topics in this video, but if there are topics that you want to see that we don't cover today, feel free to request those topics in the comments below. Then we can consider making a part 2 to this video that address some of those more specific questions. So let's go on ahead, jump right in, and get to creating some new decals in Gran Turismo 7. Before we jump into actually creating decals, I just want to cover a couple of things for those people who are brand new to this. This is the Gran Turismo 7 My Page Decal Uploader tab. This is where you actually upload your decals. You have to do this from a computer or a mobile web browser. You're not going to be able to do it from your PlayStation. And if you want to upload a decal, you just drag and drop it right into this little box and you click upload. Before you do that though, the decal has to follow these rules. 1. Uploadable SVG files can be a maximum of 15 kilobytes. There's actually two things there. 1, it has to be an SVG, and 2, it has to be 15 kilobytes. An SVG is a scalable vector graphic. And so if you look at these two Google logos, one of these is an SVG, the other one is a JPEG. If you can't tell which one is which, that's okay. This one is the SVG, this one is the JPEG. The difference in these two file types is a JPEG, when you zoom in, you're going to lose some quality, it's going to get pixelated. Versus if you look at the vector, we are zoomed in the same amount and the quality is lossless. The edges are crisp, they're clean, they're sharp. We have lost no amount of information or quality by zooming in on this file. And so vectors are the chosen by graphic designers for creating logos and decals and things like that because they can contain a lot of information in a relatively small file size. And that brings us to the next point. 15 kilobytes is a very small file size, and so there are things that we need to do to get around that, especially if we want higher quality decals. And so beyond that, those are the general rules for uploading decals. Let's go on ahead and jump right into actually creating a decal. The software that we're using today is called Inkscape. We are currently on version 1.2.2. If you're watching this video 5 years later, Inkscape might look a little bit different. They're not making big sweeping changes. It's just tweaking and enhancing little things here and there. So this should be pretty resilient as far as like standing the test of time is concerned. So you'll want to go on ahead and download that. And once you do, you're going to go through the installer here. And you can follow the custom install that I did here. If you look at these little X's, this is basically just, these are features that I've decided to not install. You can install or not install whatever you want. If you need different languages, you can install the translations for those languages. But I really just need Inkscape and some extensions and to be able to adjust the themes. So those are my selections there. Now I've gone on ahead to open Inkscape for the first time, and this is what it prompts me with. For the appearance, this is where your version of Inkscape might look different than mine. If it does look different, this is probably why. It's just what you selected here at the start. And what I'm going to go with here is just the system default. So if you want to follow along exactly, whatever you prefer. We're going to click new document, and there we go. So we are in Inkscape. We can see we've got the gray background. We have the white canvas. This white canvas is our working area. So the first thing that we're going to do is actually take this ghost logo, which I got directly from their Instagram, and they did say it was okay to screenshot it. We're going to take this ghost logo and we're going to do an auto trace to convert this into a vector. And so we're going to select it and we're going to go up to path and we're going to do trace bitmap. And now if we come over here, we have a couple of different sub menus here. Because this is yellow, white, and black, we would typically want to use multicolor to make sure that we're grabbing the right number of colors and layers. However, if you do single scan, it will do just a black and white conversion. And that might work well for your use case as well. So let me just show you that real quick. And you can see that that basically gives you an outline of the Ghost logo. The only problem with this is the Ghost logo, it has a white fill. And so this black part, it's called the stroke. With any object, you have a fill in the stroke. The stroke is the outline, the fill is what's on the inside, and the fill for this should be white. And we can care for that and we can solve for that. And I'm actually going to show you how to do that because it's going to save you a lot of time in the future. For right now, we're going to actually flip over to multicolor and we're going to flip this over to colors. And then you want to play with the number of scans here. The reason why you want to play with the number of scans is because this is going to determine basically how many layers are produced. The number of scans should correlate to the number of colors in your object. So we have yellow, black, and white. That is 3 colors. And so we should do 3 scans and that will create 3 separate layers. It'll create a yellow layer, it'll create a black layer, and then it should also create a white layer so that we have the fill taken care of. We're going to click apply. If you had, something that had a lot more colors, say there were like 10 different colors or whatever, you might have to increase the number of scans so that you capture all of those colors. If you reduce the number of scans, it's going to start blending things together and the output won't necessarily look good. So we did that. We're going to peel our vector off to the side here, but you can see it's still one big object. And if we wanted to, we could try to actually upload just this to Gran Turismo, but I want to actually get rid of the yellow and just keep the black and white because if I'm using this as a decal on the car, I don't want there to be this background. And so we're going to go on ahead and take this object and we're going to ungroup it. And now that's going to take our layers and it's going to separate them. And so now I can take the background and peel it away. And you can also see here, we're going to go on ahead and move this over. We now have a black object and a white object. And I can pull one of those away and they're 2 separate objects. And so what we're actually going to do is take those 2 objects and we're going to drop them into a new Inkscape document. We're going to reshape. We're going to take that and we're just going to save it. And we're going to see how big, we're going to call it Ghost 1. We're going to see how big this file size is and see if maybe this is small enough to upload into Gran Turismo. We can see the size here is 20 kilobytes. It's still too big. It's not going to upload to Gran Turismo. And so now you have 2 options. Option number 1 is to go in here and manually start reducing the file size. And the way that you would do that is to basically take one object at a time and go in and remove any unnecessary data points. So I selected over here the Edit Paths by Nodes tool, and that basically allows you to go in and select nodes, manipulate them, and even delete them. And you might be wondering, like, why would you delete nodes? And the answer is simple. There are a lot of unnecessary data points here where if you look here and you look at that node, you can delete that and that line still looks good. And you can delete this one and that line will still look good. And you can go around and do that for several different places on this vector. And you're going to be able to delete a lot of unnecessary data and still retain the quality of the image. So that's option number 1. Like I said, go in, delete all of the unnecessary nodes. You would do that for the stroke object up here, and then you do it for the fill object down here as well. And that is a very necessary process with many of the graphics that you're going to create, many of the decals, simply because they're going to be massive. They're not going to be good quality. And so what you're going to find is if you have a file that is really poor quality, it's a bad quality JPEG before you bring it into Inkscape, it's going to create a lot of layers and each of those individual pixels are going to turn into a node and you're going to have a ton of unnecessary nodes. And so sometimes that step that I just showed you is necessary. But what I'm going to show you now is an automated step. And if we go over here to SVG OMG, this is an automated tool that you can use. You just search for SVG OMG in Google. This is an automated tool you can use where we're going to take the Ghost logo off of our desktop. We're going to drop it right in here. And now we're going to take this and we can reduce the file size using this program that this person created. And I want to show you two things here. One, I want to show you that this representation of your file size is not accurate. So if you are basing your understanding of the size of your file off of that, it's going to be wrong. And the way that you know it's wrong is because my file size is 20 kilobytes. I just uploaded it and it's saying its starting file size is 8.6 kilobytes. We haven't done anything yet, so there's no way that's accurate. But what is accurate is the reduction amount, right? So the proportion that we are reducing your file size by. And so what that should hypothetically do is take our 20 kilobyte file and bring it down to around 10 or 11 kilobytes. The second thing was the number precision here. And if you use this slider, you can actually reduce the precision and it'll make it less precise, but it of course makes the file way smaller too. But we're going to stay with around 50% here. We're going to download that and we can see that that file is now 11 kilobytes. We can go over to Gran Turismo and we can take that file, we can drag and drop it. There it is. And we can upload it and it uploads no problem in Gran Turismo. And so that is using SVG OMG. We're going to flip back to Inkscape and I just want to show you, I want to talk about the background a little bit, this fill. Let's pull this off to the side here and pull that off to the side as well. And when I select these objects, you can see how many nodes each of these objects have, right? And so let's say, what if I just like got rid of that object? And now if I resize, and I'm going to save this as Ghost 2. And this is really important, guys, because it's not directly applicable here, simply because we already got the file size down small enough. But just doing that reduced the file size by almost 50%. And this is a really easy way to just knock out a whole lot of excess with your file size, but you still need the background, right? You still need the fill. To fix that, what you can actually do is come in here and you can actually just draw it in. And so you could do freehand. I don't recommend that. That's actually going to result in a really big file size. You're going to come over here and you're going to do draw Bezier curves and straight lines. And you're just going to basically do just a rough outline of your object. And we're going to do the ghost lettering first, and then we'll do the actual ghost logo second. Do fill and stroke. And we're going to remove the stroke by clicking this X over here. We're going to take the fill. We're going to make the fill solid. We're just going to make it a color for now. And we're going to reduce the opacity so that we can see what we're working with. And now what you can do is come back over here to the Edit Paths by Nodes tool, and you can start fine tuning it. So we're going to drag our corners in. We're going to add a new node right here, double click, new node, just like that. And now we're going to go on this horizontal plane and we're going to make it a curve just by clicking and holding, and we can drag, and that creates a curve. We're going to come over here, click and hold, drag, that creates a curve. Now we can take that, bring it inside. We can make that curve a little bit more exaggerated to make sure it fills in appropriately. We can take this one, we can bring it down. We're going to need a node here and a node here. There we go. We're going to bring that down just a little bit so it's all under. And then over here, we're going to need a couple of nodes. So we'll bring that in, we'll bring that out. Okay. All right, great. So that's looking pretty good. I think we have a little bit of spillover right here. And we can just bring that down a little bit. And you see how it had this kind of seesaw effect. That's because of how these handles are. We're going to make that solid instead of transparent. So object lower to bottom. All right, now we're going to do the same thing for our ghost over here. Now we have a fill for our objects, and it is way simpler from a data perspective, right? We have like 5 nodes here. If we flip over to the actual outline, there's way more nodes, and that same number of nodes were on the fill before. So now, and we're going to save this as Ghost 3, and let's check and see what our file size looks like now. And Ghost 3 is still only 13 kilobytes, and so that was the same exercise, but we did not use the optimization tool online. And so you could do that first to knock out a huge chunk of excess, and then take this and upload it online, and we could actually see how much further we could reduce our file size by. And guys, this is really the name of the game when it comes to Gran Turismo 7 and getting your decals uploaded. It is making sure they're small enough in file size. So we're going to do that. And now if we show this one in our downloads, this one is 7 kilobytes versus the original, which was 20. So now that we have this ghost logo kind of in a good spot. We're going to go on ahead and just manipulate it a little bit more. And I'm going to show you how you can actually create a gradient effect with the fill that we created in the background there. And so we're going to go on ahead and select that object. And what we're going to do is come over here to this gradient tool. Create and edit gradients. We're going to select that. And now you can select the direction of your gradient. And we're going to select the gradient to go up. Let's bring it all the way up. And now we're going to go to the black gradient, which is on the bottom. And we are going to, we'll leave that black. And we're going to go to the top gradient. And we are going to make that black as well. And then we're going to add a couple more gradients. And we're going to go here. And we're going to make that one, actually, we want to leave them solid. We don't want them transparent. We're going to make that one blue like that. And then we'll take this one and we'll make this one like just a little bit lighter, maybe. And so there we go. We're going to take that and drag it up. And we're going to drag that down a little bit so that the black isn't, so we can still see kind of like the outline, right, of everything. It's just kind of like shaded. There we go. All right, that's kind of cool. I'm liking the way that looks. We're going to come over here. We're going to do the same thing. And for this one, we're going to have it, since the ghost is kind of flying in that direction, we're going to have the gradient go that way. All right, and we're going to stretch that one out as well. And for the top gradient here. So to change the gradient, you just select the node or the handle. And then you can come over here. We're going to make it solid, right? Instead of transparent, we're going to make it opaque. And then we're going to come over here. We're going to make our colors sharp real quick here. All right, we're going to make that nice and bright. And it's going to be like a light pink. And then it's going to become a darker pink. Hey, all right, that's looking pretty good too. And I'm just thinking about the ghost, you know, the energy drink cans and what they look like. And so I'm just kind of going with these like cool Miami Vice neon colors. All right, so we're going to go on ahead. We're going to save this. But before we save it, I need to tell you something very important. With gradients, they are the bane of the existence in Gran Turismo, and they are very finicky. And so anytime you are working with gradients in Gran Turismo, they need to be the last step in your process. So you notice I did everything else and now I'm doing the gradient. If I went back and like adjusted some nodes, tweaked something, you know, reshaped an object, moved an object around, it could very well break the gradient. So you want to make sure you are done with pretty much everything before you move into the gradient step. And most of the time, as long as you follow that kind of general rule of thumb, you're going to be okay. I will say that mesh gradients and radial gradients don't really work very well, but this is a linear gradient, right? Just like top to bottom, and they work fine as long as you follow that general step and you do this. Go to save, optimized SVG. And we're going to go ahead and save that. Actually, I didn't change the name of the file. So we need to make sure we save this as a different file name so we don't mess up our original. That's really important, okay? Because when you save as an optimized SVG, you actually lose some data. And so we're going to go on ahead and save this as an optimized SVG. And we're going to flip over to our desktop and we can see it's 11 kilobytes. So it reduces the file size, you lose some data, and we're going to just roll the dice, try to upload this into Gran Turismo and see what happens. Boom, there we go. It is uploaded in Gran Turismo. Now, I will tell you that I need to pull up my PlayStation and just validate that this looks good, because I have numerous times gone in and uploaded an optimized vector and it looks good here, but then when I open it in actual Gran Turismo, it kind of looks like doo-doo. Awesome, that worked really well. So I tried something a little bit different too. I tried to save it as a plain SVG just to be safe, but our vector, our optimized SVG uploaded perfectly. That actually looks really good. I am super excited to make this livery. Let me know what y'all think in the chat. But I think this is going to be a fun one. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and flip back over to Inkscape. All right, I want to talk about how I was able to bring this livery to life in Gran Turismo, because you might look at this and think like, holy moly, how is something like that even possible in the Gran Turismo livery editor? And I'm going to be honest with you, it's kind of not. If you were to try to recreate this triangle pattern in the Gran Turismo livery editor, for example, it would be like 15 triangles, right? Just for this one part of the decal. And you would just run out of layers, especially if you look at like the side pieces here with these blues that are, ribbed stripes kind of going through up against the edges. It would be impossible to do that. And I was able to do that using a little trick in Inkscape where I actually went into Gran Turismo and I took some screenshots in Gran Turismo, and I actually took those screenshots, and we're just going to take this one and we're going to drop it into Inkscape. We're going to take this and we're going to come over here and we are going to flip over to edge detection and check out the preview down here. So this is basically creating a trace, an outline, a sketch. It's creating a sketch of this S13. And you just want to kind of fine tune it so that it gives you a good outline of the car. So we're going to go on ahead and click apply, and we'll take the original, peel it off to the side here. And so you now have a template that you can create decals off of. And so I'm going to show you how I created one or two of these decals. All right, so I just went on ahead and pulled up one of the pictures here, and I zoomed in so that you could see what the front fender looked like. And I'm just going to show you real quick, kind of roughly, how I was able to accomplish that. We're just going to start with a square. And we're going to take that square and we're going to get it to fit roughly about where we want it to fit. And now with this square, you basically have to do a couple things. So you got to take it and which one of these is it? I think it's this one here. Convert shapes to path. Yeah, because it's a shape right now. We have to convert it to a path. And now that it is a path, you can adjust the individual nodes. We'll take this one, we'll bring it down, and kind of like what we were doing before, we are just going to manipulate these nodes so that it fits roughly the shape of our object. And so we want it to wrap around the fender. So we're going to need a node here and a node here. So it's nice and tightly wrapped. And our fender is right there. And we're going to take this handle, pull it over here. All right. And then we've got our headlight here. So we've got to do this. Here, we'll add another one here. There we go. And we need another one here. And now you have a full fender piece. If I were to take this, just this, I could upload that to Gran Turismo and use it as just a fender piece. But you can see how it's all disjointed. And then obviously there's different patterns here. But what we want to do next is take this and basically start making it into individual objects. And then those individual objects we can manipulate individually. We're going to use our set operators, and I am just going to take a really simple rectangle here, and we're just going to make that black. So to rotate it, we just click in the shape, inside the shape, and we can kind of rotate it wherever we want it to go. And what I'm going to do, so I'm going to convert that shape to a path. And we'll put that one right there. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to do our set operations. So we're going to select our object. We're going to select our other object, and we're going to go path difference. All right. Now we're going to do that again. Path difference. And we're going to do that again. Path difference. All right. And now this is still one object. Okay. And maybe you want to leave it that way. Maybe you don't. It all depends on what your desired outcome is. But I want to actually treat these as multiple separate objects. And I need to do that because I have different patterns going in between each one. So we're going to come up here, and I believe what we want to do next is break apart. Yeah, break apart. So now these are all individual objects. I'm not going to move them. And in fact, what I'm actually going to do is take this and make a copy of it. And I'm going to move the copy down here. And you'll see why here in a minute. But now that I have the copy down here, what I can actually do is come back in and I can create some additional kind of lines. These are going to be kind of like filler space. All right, so now what we want to do is we're going to combine these objects into one. And so we're going to go path, combine. And now we can move those around together. And we are going to actually object lower to bottom. There we go. And now when I select them, I can go to path, intersection, and I have this shape. And this shape, I'm now going to raise it to the top, and I can put it back over top of that object there. And that is how I was able to impose all of these tiny little individual shapes into these bigger shapes in Inkscape. And obviously you can get as intricate with it as you want. This was kind of a brute force exercise, but that is essentially the bones of how you would do that. So the last two topics we're going to cover today are text and metallic decals. And text is rather straightforward. You basically just have to remember to convert your object to a path. Metallic decals are a little bit trickier because there's a couple different ways to do it, but we're going to kind of bundle it into one here. And so let's go on ahead and start with text. And we're just going to say this is the shadow realm. And we're going to change this font. So we're going to right click, we're going to do text and font, and then we can select a new font over here. There we go. We're going to make that nice and big. We'll do size 50 font. There we go. And then as far as manipulating this, it's kind of similar to Microsoft Word, but there's some really cool features here that I want to make sure you are aware of. Very specific to graphic design. So first we're going to center things up, but then we're going to go over to this spacing option. And if you hover your mouse, you'll see what all of these different spacing options do. And what I want to focus on are these three right here. This first one is the space between your letters. So that's going to smoosh all of your letters together. And then this one is the space between words. And so that's going to bring all of your words nice and close together as well. And then this is the vertical kerning. And so basically this will allow you to reduce the space between lines. And this is awesome, again, because it allows you to uniformly manipulate all of your text. And it would help if I put a W there. All right, so now that we've done that, we've got the general shape that we want this to be in. We're going to take this and we're just going to increase the size. We're going to make it nice and big. We're going to resize our document. We'll zoom in here and we're going to select this. We're going to go path, object to path, path, strict path. And now that ensures that this is now an Inkscape object that we are able to manipulate. See, we have nodes now, and if we wanted to, we could adjust those nodes. But what we are going to do is we're going to go like that. We're going to go path, we're going to go combine, and then we're going to go object, and we're going to go group, just to make sure that this is one uniform object. And then we are going to make it look like metallic text. And to do that, we are going to start with gradients. And we are going to need our gradient tool over here. And we're going to make sure that this last one is opaque. And we are basically going to go through here, adding additional nodes, and then basically brightening those nodes up. And so we're going to go select that node. We're going to do that. Forgot to select it. That one will be late. There we go. And then maybe one more here. Don't forget to select your nodes, kids. So that gradient is done. That is a metallic effect. There we go. This is the shadow realm. I don't know what anybody would use that for, but it's there. All right, let's go on ahead and flip back over to Gran Turismo. And there it is. This is the shadow realm. And it is not the best rendition of a metallic decal. But look, when it comes to metallic decals in Gran Turismo, you have two options. You can either make them with a gradient effect, but the difference with that is it's not going to adjust with the lighting. Or you would basically create a stencil effect where you basically have the backdrop like this, right? And under that stencil, you would use metallic paint. And so I have a Jaguar decal that I used for this very specific purpose way back when. And let's see if I can pull it up here. Not the Twitch, Jaguar. And you'll be able to see a little bit here where I basically created a metallic effect underneath the decal by using a stencil decal. And now the metallic shines as the light hits the car in different ways. So that's the difference, right? Of course, in option 1, you're just creating a decal that has a metallic effect. In option 2, you're using metallic paint, but then you have to work all of your decals around that metallic paint. So guys, if you are finding some value with this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. That's going to go on ahead and wrap things up for today. So I really do hope that you enjoyed this. You got some value out of it. But guys, thanks so much for stopping by. If you have any questions, again, just drop them in the comments below. And maybe, if we get enough, we can think about making another video in the future that is focused on user-generated topics. So anyways, guys, thanks for stopping by. Great hanging out, making this video with you. We'll catch up with you next time. Until then, goodbye.